see where the asset titling falls, and then you follow the document. Hi, Jeff Marsace, the Plain English Attorney, and welcome to this video. So this is actually a special video being put together that's directly relating to a client situation. So if you're seeing this, you know who you are. You're getting this well in advance of the general public, but I figured, look, we might as well do this to explain the different concepts so it's out there. So we're going to jump in and talk about the family situation first, so that we can see exactly what's going on, but it's dealing with settling multiple trusts after the death of the parents. So, and there might be some probate. In fact, I know there is in this particular case. So, okay, those are the credentials: 26 years of experience as an attorney, certified Medicaid planner, 9+ books on estate planning, and the creator and producer of online courses available at plainenglishattorney.com. So check that out if you want to learn some more stuff. But let's talk about this particular situation. What's the planning situation? What happened? So it was well over 10 years ago. Mom and dad had 2 daughters. Their main wealth, they had some investments, but they also had real estate, and they wanted to avoid probate. They wanted to make sure that everything went where it was supposed to go. And so they had a revocable living trust set up that we helped them with, along with their financial professional. And the living trust had all the other documents that went along with it: healthcare, power of attorney, all that stuff. But we had pour-over wills, which meant if mom died, mom's will said if anything ends up in probate, it goes to the revocable trust. And dad had a similar pour-over will. Well, we move forward several years. Mom starts to get dementia. So there were now concerns that she may end up needing Medicaid for long-term care, and those multiple properties were going to get in the way of her receiving that care. And so they didn't want to do that. Dad was fine. So what we did was we set up an irrevocable property trust and an irrevocable family trust and whatever the rest of the Medicaid planning toolbox we could for dad. And then we moved the real estate from the revocable trust to the irrevocable property trust. And the advisor worked on moving some of the money that was going to be protected after 5 years from a Medicaid spend down, so that the money went into the irrevocable family trust. So right now that got set up. There's 3 main trusts we're dealing with: the irrevocable property trust, the irrevocable family trust, and the revocable trust. So then dad, after creating all of that, his new will, that's a pour-over will, goes to the irrevocable family trust. Now, here's the thing. Mom couldn't execute new documents. We left the revocable living trust standing. We moved, so she had her will, and there's the revocable living trust, and we moved the assets into the irrevocable family trust to start the 5-year clock. But look, it's still there. So it's still in place. So then dad passes on after everything was quit claimed in from the revocable trust to the property trust. So now the daughter, the trustee daughter, is managing the irrevocable property trust, the irrevocable family trust, and really there's nothing that needs to be done with the revocable living trust, but the daughter's in charge of that too. So she's in charge of all 3 of those trusts. And then eventually mom passes on, and now the whole question is, how do we settle this? The correct way to think about this is to stay focused on each of those 3 trusts and what's in them and what does each of those trusts say, and we'll walk through it. Now, there's This happens all the time. It's happening in this particular case. Oh, well, Dad always said that this is going here. And my mom wanted this to go here. And this is what's going on. And this person claims they have. None of it matters. None of it matters. What matters is, what does the documentation say? Well, that doesn't sound right. It is, because everybody's got a different view on what mom or dad said, what I was promised, and what's fair. It doesn't matter. The courts would be overrun with family drama on everything. And, well, they said this, they said, if they even looked at it. They don't. It stays within the documents. If you think it's important for educational videos like this to get out there, then please help us out by subscribing to the channel. So let's walk through this. So we have, quote, settlement entities. It's like, where are the assets, and then where do they have to go? So there's assets in the irrevocable property trust. There are assets subject to Dad's pour-over will to the irrevocable family trust. So if anything's in Dad's name, it goes to probate, but then the will says it goes to the irrevocable family trust. There are assets that are in the irrevocable family trust already. Fourth, there are assets that are subject to Mom's pour-over will to the revocable trust because it was in her name when she passed on. And then there are, fifth, assets that are in the joint revocable living trust. Now, I'll be upfront, we're still working on where is everything, but this is all about conceptually how to think about it. So let's go ahead and we'll start moving forward with the irrevocable trust. We have assets, the real estate that's in the irrevocable property trust. Well, the terms of the irrevocable property trust say the real estate after the death of both Mom and Dad goes to the irrevocable family trust. Well, why move it like that? It's because those aren't the only two trusts. There are other multiple trusts that were all put together in combination. Everything points to the irrevocable family trust, and that's where we have listed out who's getting what. Okay. So the first step is move anything in the irrevocable property trust into the irrevocable family trust. All right. That's conceptually very easy. It just takes deeds to move it from trust to trust. So what's the second step? Now we're talking about, what if something ends up in probate? And in this particular case, we know there are assets that are in probate because we know at least there are some vehicles that are titled in Dad's name. So even though Dad passed on before, there's still some stuff that's going to be titled in his name that never got transferred. And so that's going to be in probate. So Dad's will, after probate, says all the stuff that's in Dad's probate goes to the irrevocable family trust. All right, that's where that particular, quote, settlement entity, Dad's probate, it goes to the irrevocable family trust. Well, then what happens once everything is in the irrevocable family trust? That's where we have certain pieces of real estate that are going to specific beneficiaries. In this particular case, there are 3 parcels of land. I'm going to just say it like that. There were 3 deeds. 2 of them are going to one daughter. 1 of them is going to the daughter who's the trustee. And it's just whatever that land is encompassed in those particular deeds go to those particular daughters. I'm not going to get into questions of, well, wait, where's the property line on this? Look, whatever's covered by the deed, that's what it has to be. And so next, the revocable trust distributions. Let's talk about the probate process. So mom's assets, anything titled in her name, has to go through probate and then goes over to the revocable trust, because that's the only plan we could do, because mom couldn't execute anything new. So vehicles are titled in mom's name. All right, so probate has to be used to grab a hold of those assets and then transfer title. So we have mom's probate. And when that's done, mom's pour-over will says it goes to the revocable trust. Well, who are the beneficiaries of the revocable trust? Well, it's the two daughters. But really, we should just be talking about whatever vehicles and maybe personal property that mom had that wasn't already transferred. That's the stuff that's going to be part of mom's probate. Actually, in fact, if I'm remembering correctly, all of mom's personal stuff got put over to the revocable trust initially all those years ago when we signed that. So it's just like vehicles. So now that goes over to the revocable living trust, and the revocable living trust distributes out things 50-50 to the daughters. So that's really it. You have to look at each of those, quote, trust settlement entities. Irrevocable property trust, irrevocable family trust, dad's probate, mom's probate, revocable living trust. See where the asset titling falls, and then you follow the document. If it's in mom or dad's name, after probate, it's going somewhere. And you just follow that trust directions. So the next steps need full information on assets titled in dad's name, full information on assets titled in mom's name, full information on assets titled in the revocable trust, full information on assets titled in the property trust. And I'm sorry, that last one isn't property trust. That's the family trust. So that fifth one is family trust. So once we have that full information, we already see which box it's going to have to go through. So there's probably going to be some probate, but it wasn't the main assets that was already handled when it got moved to the irrevocable family trust or the irrevocable property trust. And then we have to, quote, settle the irrevocable property trust to move it into the irrevocable family trust. And then from the irrevocable family trust to the correct beneficiaries, in the revocable living trust to the correct beneficiaries. That's the overall game plan. It sounds incredibly complicated because you have right now 3 different trusts we're dealing with and 2 probate estates. Yeah, but if you stick to the principles and you get it into the right category, suddenly it's going to be a lot easier to track. So I hope you found that information useful for the clients who are getting this. I hope you really do find this useful. But just in general, like I tell all my clients, please stay safe, plan ahead, and enjoy life. And whatever you do, make it a great day.